The Art of True Connection, Radical Listening with Christian van Nieuwerburgh. We all strive to deepen our relationships and create robust and genuine connections. Join us as we welcome Christian. He's an executive coach, consultant, and co author of Radical Listening, The Art of True Connection. Christian will guide us through the principles of radical listening, a transformative approach to communication with empathy, understanding, and stronger bonds. Discover how to listen with your whole self, cultivate presence, and create spaces for authentic dialogue in every area of your life. Let's have a conversation that will revolutionize how we connect with others and empower us to build meaningful relations. Welcome to the Wellness Driven Life Show, where you're about to go on a wellness driven ride. Let me share a little bit about the incredible guests that we have with us today. Christian van Nieuwerburgh is an executive coach, consultant, and author dedicated to helping individuals and organizations thrive. He is passionate about positive psychology and the art of coaching, and his work, including his co-authored book, Radical Listening, The Art of True Connection. It focuses on fostering authentic connection and enhancing human relationships. He shares his insights and strategies through his Coach on a Motorcycle platform. I am so pleased to help welcome to our stage today, Christian. Welcome.
Thank you so much, April. I've been really looking forward to chatting with you about this. And I feel I'm on this journey already of the driven life. So I can't wait to share some ideas.
Well, you absolutely are on the journey of the driven life, as with Coach on a Motorcycle. So this is an exciting opportunity for us to get to know you. Do you mind giving our audience a little bit more background about who you are?
Yeah, it's such a great question, isn't it, April? Coach on a Motorcycle is a bit of a passion project of mine. In my kind of more serious life, I guess, I'm an academic. I'm professor of coaching and positive psychology at a university. But Coach on a Motorcycle really captures what's important for me. Now, one, I have to be honest, motorcycles and riding are things that I'm very passionate about. But I also love the idea of sharing what I'm learning from my academic role, what I'm learning as an executive coach, with a much wider audience. So really, Coach on a Motorcycle is the dream of I get to ride a motorcycle and then find opportunities to share ideas that might have a real impact on real people.
So you are a life learner, to say it very simply.
Yeah. Love of learning is probably my strongest skill, and I've been curious all my life. April, I was born in Beirut, Lebanon, during the Civil War. And, obviously things are tough in situations like that. So one of the things I learned early on is the value of hope. And I've had to lean on hope quite a few times in my life. And right now, the time we're in right now, April, is one where I think many of us are needing to kind of connect with that hopefulness. So the work that you do here on the Wellness Driven show, these are the kinds of things that give me hope, because there's people like you finding ways to share positivity and hope and show people that, it's possible to overcome adversity. And if I can just mention something which is the whole coach on a motorcycle thing came out of this hopefulness that I had, April. You know, I was growing up in Lebanon. Like with everywhere else in the world, we all get American TV, right? So when I was like 13, 14 years old, there was this amazing TV show called Chips, California Highway Patrol. I don't know if
Hmm.
some of your listeners may be aware of it, but I just loved the show. And one of the characters, the actor is Eric Estrada. His character, I just thought, how cool is this person? He's wearing kind of Ray-Bans. He's riding around on his Harley. And I remember thinking, one day, I want to do that. I want to be on a Harley Davidson. I want to be riding in California. And the strange thing, April, is that was a dream that I held for like 45 years, maybe, or let's say 40 years. I was thinking one day I'm going to do that. And it's thanks to coaching, April, and thanks to this. I thought, you know, a lot of my professional life is supporting other people to achieve their dreams. And I just at one point thought, hold on a minute, I've got my own dream, which I've been carrying around for ages. And I was worried, April, that it would fall into this category of, you know, one day I'm going to do X thing. And I don't know if listeners here can think of that. If there's something like that, that they've said, okay, it's a little bit busy now, or I've just had kids, or, you know, I can't afford it right now. One day I will. And it's just so important, isn't it, April, for us to keep that alive. And that's where hope comes in. And I'm so happy that it was last June that I finally got onto Route 66, riding from Chicago right through to Santa Monica. And I just can't tell you what a joyful, everyday experience that was, partially because I just wanted to do it for so long. And there I was doing that thing. So, yeah, that's. And you know, anybody who wants to know more about that, if you go onto the website, I posted a couple videos every day of that journey.
Oh, okay. So I have so many moments of shivers going on inside because there's a lot that we can relate to. And I know many of our listeners have that same aspect, that the passion and drive within ourselves. And oftentimes we tend to exuberate that outside of us onto other people, which is a beautiful and wonderful thing. But all along, as we continue to, lift others up, we may not be catching that dream of our own. And something that I really loved you saying was that it's this childhood dream. And I think it's really important for all of us to go back to that childhood aspect of ourselves and remember what it was that we were really drawn to. And Chips, that's so fun. I think that show is really, really cool, and everybody should watch it. I find and I see on a lot of the channels that we have is the older stuff that's starting to resurface. And so we have a lot of opportunity to be able to take ourselves back into those moments, those time periods, the 70s, 80s, early 90s, what have you, and be able to experience what was it like. And you'll find that what they portrayed then is vastly different than what we see now when it comes to Hollywood or movies or shows. But anyway, going back to that childhood dream, mine was She-Ra, and she's the princess of power, and she's He-Man's sister, or sorry, He-Man's twin sister. So, but it's how do we want to show up? Yours is a motorcycle. They're doing cool things. They're saving the day. Same with that. I went into law enforcement, but you can start to see these things that we do in life. And if you pin it back to those things we were excited about in childhood, you see the relations.
Yeah, so wonderful, April. So yeah, I can see Shira for sure. The positivity you bring, the energy you bring, the making things better part of it. And yeah, what a wonderful invitation for us to remind ourselves, what was that thing? And sometimes that little voice gets buried amongst everything else. And I've been through it, April. Used to remember that and say, no, I'm an adult now. And that was kind of fantasy stuff. And I've got to be serious. I've got work to do. There were so many barriers that I had set up that, I was really worried that it was going to get to that stage where I was saying, yeah, that was just a childish thing. Just forget about it. But I've gotten so much from this journey. And one of the things I'm curious about, April, is how do we leverage those positive moments that most of us are able to experience regularly? And with this example, April, it was something I was looking forward to. So when I decided to do it, that moment, what a moment that was. Finally, I thought to myself, wow. And then I intentionally, April, started to look forward to it. I went onto websites. I talked to people who had done the trip. I bought a book about it. There's a friend of mine gave me an encyclopedia. And so there's this anticipation. Once we decide, we can get a lot of pleasure even before we've done it, just through that, starting to anticipate and imagine what it's like. But then I realized you have to kind of switch, April, when we get to that moment. Let's switch to, present moment awareness. Really get into, I need to stop now thinking about the future. I'm doing this thing. And so getting the joy of actually doing that thing. And I had 19 beautiful days of that. And then I think also, April, following on with this idea of leveraging those positive moments that I hope all of us get to experience, I was really keen while I was riding to somehow record it so that I could get positive vibes again when I look back and reflect back. And another dimension, and these are all things that are actually studied in positive psychology, is actually the sharing it with others. This sharing insight, sharing learning, that's another way to leverage it. So I'm really curious about this idea with every positive moment that we experience. How do we multiply the effects of it or amplify it? And how can we share the positivity and energy? How can we be the Shira for somebody else? How can I be the Eric Estrada for somebody in the future?
Yeah. Psychology is one of those fascinating things where we want to dive into how we work, how we respond, why we respond the way that we do, and going into this beautiful aspect of planning, putting something first, thinking ahead, all of those things is really the beginning of it. And then once you get there, once the planning is all done, the future creation is done, right? When you're in the moment, being able to really be present with it. And it's this interesting ebb and flow of experiences and emotion, and then, putting the action behind it and being able to love it in that moment is another thing. And so I love the fact that you also wanted to record your experiences so you could remember, recall, relive, and invoke those feelings and those emotions all over again. And not only that, but you're inspiring so many people along the way.
Yeah, thank you, April. And so again, of course, when we do these things, there's so many learning opportunities. We learn about ourselves. And a really unexpected and curious thing happened to me on this trip. So, trip of a lifetime. I rented my motorcycle. I had planned everything. And, this day that I'd been dreaming about for decades suddenly came up. So I get on my flight. I fly to Chicago. And the strangest thing happened that night, April, the night before I was going to go pick up my motorcycle. I got really anxious and I got nervous and I got worried. And it was kind of like a bit of a movie or something. That night there was thunder over Chicago and lightning. And I was thinking, am I doing something, is this ridiculous? How come I'm just, I'm doing this on my own? It was really that doubt
Mm.
crept in despite all of my efforts, and it was such a positive thing. I started to have second thoughts. I thought, what if I haven't planned this enough? I've never done a journey as long as this. And I was really interested in that doubt that needs to be managed. And the way I manage that, April, is to think this doubt, the little inner talk, the purpose of it is probably to be helpful to me. It's kind of saying to me, be careful, remember to just to think ahead. Have you done everything you need to do? So I think there's a challenge there of not letting that voice overwhelm you with doubts. And honestly, April, there was a point where I thought, look, I can still cancel the whole thing. I don't need to go, I can spend a week in Chicago. And that surprised me, April, because I hadn't planned for that. I hadn't even got any backups. And yeah, so it's curious. And there's so much learning to be had when we do these things that we've always wanted to do.
Ah, well, thank you so much for sharing that journey with us, because absolutely there's going to be things that intimidate us along the way when we finally get to that moment. It's interesting how we respond when we get to the point where we're about to live out our dream. There's something that wants to catapult us back and say, oh, no, it's not really possible, or you're not going to be able to, or whatever, all of those voices inside of our head. We tend to oftentimes be our worst enemies when it comes to living out our dreams. So I love that you brought that in. We're going to move to our first commercial. And when we get back, let's talk a little bit about how that has to do with how we communicate, not only with ourselves, but with others. Stay tuned. Are you ready to take control of your ride to wellness? Rev up with Driven Living. Visit www.drivenliving.com and buckle up for a journey. Get exclusive access to our Wellness Driven Life Show guest portal, where you can dive deep into the minds of our esteemed guests. Sign up for our newsletter and get insider scoops on these distinguished personalities. It's like having a backstage pass to their life-changing wisdom. But that's not all. You'll also receive a free hug. You heard me right, a free hug. An enlightening ebook from the Driven Living team. Discover the science-backed benefits of hugging yourself. It's a fill-up for your wellness tank. Because at Driven Living, we believe in fueling your journey to wellness, both physically and psychologically. So what are you waiting for? Visit www.drivenliving.com today. Welcome back, everyone. Here with Christian van Nieuwerburgh, and we're having an incredible conversation about, dreams, childhood ideals, and what that looks like as an adult, and also the psychological aspect of why we do the things we do, or maybe don't do the things we do. Now, I'm starting to see myself a little bit of a trend moving into the discussion of how we communicate with others and the radical listening piece. And I think that we begin with that is with ourselves. And so the story front that's coming to the forefront is this example of how to really strongly listen to yourself, and what does it mean, and how do you move forward with that? So Christian, can you share a little bit about how you came up with this idea and this excitement about writing a book about radical listening?
Thank you, April. So there is a connection for sure, because I think if we become better listeners to other people, we really start to learn the strategies that we can apply to ourselves. And that idea of listening to ourselves, it's a more complex idea, I think, than even listening to others. So I love the idea of developing our listening so that we can listen to ourselves. That does sound beautiful. I'm very fortunate to have worked with Dr. Robert Biswas-Diener. He's my co-author. And we're both executive coaches. So you can say that, we listen for a living. It's part of our professional role to provide high quality listening to others. And through our executive coaching experience, but also our study of the fields of coaching psychology and positive psychology, we became aware of how transformational listening can be. And what we wanted to do was write a highly practical book about how we can really dial up our listening. If we think of it as a skill, we thought radical listening is like taking the listening most of us are able to do on a daily basis. I mean, just let's take a moment to think about that. You know, how many listening moments are there in every one of our days? Now, imagine that every one of those listening moments is an opportunity for connection. And April, our subtitle is the thing that I'm most passionate about. We call it Radical Listening, the Art of True Connection. So in this book, what we wanted to do was break down for those people who are interested in saying, yeah, I want to be able to listen better. We wanted to give some practical tools and ideas so that we can really work hard on our listening so that we can provide a quality experience to those people that we listen to.
Well, true listening is a deep connection with someone else. You're starting to form that relation with them, that trust, that sense of I hear you and they feel listened to and heard. And again, going back to forming that trust. And I love the radical piece because well, I guess maybe that's just a lot of my day and age. So I think that it's
Yeah.
really wonderful that you guys have brought this again to the world where we can learn how to tune in to one another because there's a lot of disconnect that happens, and I would venture to say especially this day and age because of the distractions that we have, because our phones and our work and everything that we do is on a screen. And so I would love to know a little bit more about what you guys found in your research and how that plays a role in the way that we communicate, in the way that we listen.
Yeah, I'd love to share this, April. And just to say, you are a radical listener, April. I said as executive coaches, we're doing it, but as the host, April, you've been wonderful already at doing this. And I want to start by saying, defining radical listening by the impact that it has. And you've literally said these words. Our definition is that radical listening is the kind of listening that makes the other person feel seen, valued, and heard, right? So if you have a conversation with someone and you listen to them in a way that they feel seen, valued, and heard, then you're doing radical listening. Now, what's radical about the type of listening we're proposing is that we think we're moving beyond active listening. And I'm a big fan of active listening. I think it's done us huge favors. Now, active listening is really about demonstrating that you're listening to someone. And it's really about comprehension. It's saying, make sure that you kind of repeat back what you're hearing, make sure you look like you're listening. And radical listening is saying that in addition to comprehending or understanding what somebody else is saying, that there are other motivations for that we can bring to our conversations. And another radical aspect is that the listener, that's you can choose the intention that you take into any listening interaction. And for example, we talk about a few motives of listening. Now, the ones that we think about most are understanding and learning, April. So we all know that if you're trying to learn something, it's helpful to listen. Or sometimes we listen for the purpose of understanding. Those are the common ones. But also we can listen in a way to build connection. We can listen in a way to appreciate people. So already for listeners, I'd like to invite you to undertake an experiment, which is the next time you have a chance to have a conversation with someone, preferably somebody with whom you want to have a good relationship, just try out the idea that your intention when you go into the conversation is only, your only intention is, I want to show this person that I appreciate them. Now, what's powerful about this, April, is our idea that intention leads to attention. Remember, I gave the example of listening for the purposes of learning. So if I have the intention of learning, I'm going to be listening out for information that's helpful. I'm going to be listening for things that maybe I've already know and what new ideas are there. My attention is focused on what can I get so that I learn. But once we turn, for example, to the intention of appreciating, then the same thing is happening. Our attention is drawn to what are the things that connect me and this other person? What are the things about them that I can really highlight? What are the strengths that I'm seeing? And through that uh, attention to those things, playing them back to our conversational partner, that's the thing that starts to build really human connection, a connection between two human beings.
Oh, I really like how you bring that in. And, it makes me think of listening with your heart. Because
Yes,
we're energetic beings, we now know, there's all of these frequencies that are being emitted from us, right? And it's a consistent thing. And so what frequencies are you putting out and what's coming back into you? And that's an essence of us, where when we're listening, when we're communicating, it's those vibrations that are really playing off of one another.
that's perfect. I would say yes, April, we're designed as social beings, right? So we almost have like little radars of how interested is this person in what I'm saying? How much are they respecting me? So really, April, one of the key ideas about radical listening is listening in a respectful way. We're respecting the other person. We're demonstrating that respect. Like you said, we live in distracted times. There's all sorts of other things going on. Nowadays, to give somebody our undivided attention, I mean, that's as respectful as we can be. So, and respect is a little bit like oxygen for relationships and conversations. If I were talking to you, April, and I just thought, April doesn't respect me, whatever the reason is, I might just have that suspicion, that would really shut me down. I'd start to doubt what it is I'm saying. I wouldn't
Mm.
find the words. I'd lose the flow. So I love this idea that, the radical listening is a way of really starting to foster that connection. And, I'm a very naive person, April. I guess we have to be a little bit naive nowadays. But my hope is that radical listening is about initiating something. It's giving us agency so that if there's a relationship in our lives that we think we'd like that to be a bit better, the agency part of it, the belief that we might be able to do something, is very powerful. And so what we're saying in radical listening is we can do something about it. And that is to initiate this way of listening to the other person and of reaching out and saying, look, I actually value you and I respect you. And by listening to them, we start to build that connection. And I think that connection is what we can build on to turn it into a really strong, meaningful relationship.
Mm. I'm going to go a little bit of a different direction and bring in a more domestic example for this, because when I hear that you want to build a good, solid connection with, let's say, somebody that you already have a solid connection with, but you want to continue keeping a good connection with them, right? Let's play the role of wife and husband, and listening, truly being able to listen to one another. Sometimes we become so comfortable, right, in our space, and we tend to let things go to the wayward. And even a child, right? Your child comes up to you and you're doing something, you're distracted, and they're trying to show you their artwork, and you're not fully present or fully listening to them. So I told my husband the other day, I said, there's so many times where you're speaking to me and I don't hear anything that you're saying, and maybe I can catch on and follow back up. But there's time that I need. If he tries having a conversation with me while I'm on screen, I need time away from it. It's almost like this buffer moment that I need to get my energy shifted back to the present moment of what's in front of me. I'm like, I just need a few minutes, and then I can really tune into you. And I think that heightens that respect piece and that continuation of being able to harness good relationships continuously, because there are those mundane ways we can get back into the daily routines and not be fully. You don't want to lose that, just like you don't want to lose that with a first impression. You don't want to lose that with those that you love and continue on impressioning.
Well, April, thank you so much for raising that and sharing that example. Because, if I have any really precious hope for the book and the ideas in the book, it's actually that it enhances those relationships that you just talked about. And you're absolutely right. There's a very high risk of us going into autopilot, right? So if we've got really busy days, we've got lots of things going on, when we get back home or when we switch off the laptop, maybe we don't give enough weight to those relationships that are around for us. So I want to give an example of something that I think is worse than not listening, right? So we're saying radical listening is one of the most powerful forms of listening. And you would assume that I'd be saying, well, the worst thing is not listening. Well, there's something worse than not listening, April. And that's what I'm calling half listening. And the big risk is that when we're tired or when we've gotten into a routine or it's a kind of a habit, that we kind of drift in and drift out. And this is a real example from my own family life. My partner and I were working all day and busy, really busy jobs. And this was when my son was about 14 years old. He would play sports at school, so sometimes he'd come back a little bit late. And my intention, of course, this is one of the most important people in my life, is I do want to listen to my son. So one time he came home a little bit late. I had tons of email. I had a presentation the next morning. So I start off by saying, oh, hey, great that you're back. How was today? And he starts telling me, right? He's like, oh, well, this happened. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got this other stuff going on. So I kind of zoned out a little bit. And in fact, he had told me that he'd fallen down when he was playing sports. He'd scratched something. And I didn't pick it up. And then in the end, I just said, oh, great. I'm glad you had a good day, because I was already distracted. And he was really upset. He's like, I didn't have a good day. I told you, I just fell down. And that was one of those moments where I thought, what am I doing? What am I doing? This is one of the most important people in my life. And I've been distracted. And I did the worst thing, which is pretended or gave the impression, I want to listen to you, when I really don't. Now that I think back, it would have actually been better to say, hey, good to see you back. I want to hear what's happened. We'll chat a bit later. It's better to say I don't have time to listen now than to offer that half listening. And of course, that can happen with our partners as well. We're kind of comfortable with them. We've been chatting all the time. And in fact, April, there's a few barriers that I wanted to mention. It might be helpful for your listeners, but we can think about it in the professional space, or we can think about it in our personal space. So a few of the barriers, and I'd like you, the listener, just to think, do these barriers ever come up for you? So one is the I don't have time barrier. So we call it in our book, we call it time poverty, the perception that I don't have time. So if you're ever about to get into a listening situation and you're thinking, I don't have time, well, obviously that's a barrier because you're likely to get impatient. If you're telling yourself, I don't have time, you're probably thinking about something else. The other barrier is unsolicited advice. And I'm sorry, everyone, if this is going to be quite challenging. But one of the big barriers to us listening to others is wanting to jump in with some advice about what it is they're going through. And I call it unsolicited advice, because if people have asked for our advice, yeah, of course we should give it because we want to be supportive. But just be careful of those moments when you say, hey, I've got an idea for you, or if I were in your shoes, because maybe that's not what's being asked for. So I'll just mention my partner. My partner comes home from work. She's had a tough day. And she's like, oh, these things happened at work. It's been really tough for me. And then without really thinking about what my partner is wanting, I can kind of jump into, oh, well, did you try this? Or what is it you want to do about it right now? I might go into listening in order to solve. But the issue happens, April. The issue is that sometimes there's a mismatch between the intention I have and what it is that my partner wants. And the mismatch of me listening to solve something when maybe my partner just wants to be acknowledged, it's not neutral. The impact actually damages rapport, it damages the relationship. So, what can we do to be practical? One of the skills we talk about is noticing. One of the things we can do is really put our radar out there for what's my conversational partner wanting from this interaction? And we can get pretty good at that. But even better, April, even better, and it's such a simple fix. Many people probably do this already, but it's asking. So my partner comes back, had a tough day at work, and I would say, oh gosh, what would be the most helpful thing for me to do right now? Allowing my partner to say, oh, I just need a listening ear. Or I do want advice, or can I just talk it through with you? I want to try and figure this out. So, really, another aspect of radical listening is about optimal matching between the kind of support we're giving through our listening with the kind of support that our conversational partner needs in that moment.
You bring up so many great ideas, and it takes practice, doesn't it? It takes a lot of practice to be able to rein yourself back in, to not say anything in the moment, because especially for people who really like to fix things and they really
Yeah.
want to be helpful, and it takes a lot of practice to be able to just be quiet, listen to what they're saying, and then ask them, how can I assist, if anything, or do you just want a listening ear? And the thing that you mentioned earlier, I'm guilty of a lot of that, the half listening. My gosh, that is something that I continuously work on to and seek to improve within myself. And like I said, I sometimes I have to just be really upfront with people and say, give me just a moment to kind of regroup, reframe what it is I'm doing so I can listen to you. But that can be difficult when you're excited and you want to bounce ideas off of one another and you're in a creative state and in a creative moment, right? And so all of the things that you're bringing, Christian, to the forefront are really wonderful, beautiful examples for ways that we can start being a better and radical listener.
Thank you so much, April. And I feel you and I were kind of also on the same wavelength with this. I really want to reiterate the idea of compassion, right? So, of course, being compassionate to others, but I want to highlight one of the things you said about compassion to ourselves. of course, with important relationships that are meaningful to us, we do want to be a good listening ear. We want to provide. We do want to do that. But there will be situations where we're not able to do that, and that's okay. I think one of the things that I'd love to share with your listeners is the idea of in order to provide your full and undivided attention to others, you do need to look after yourselves. And this isn't a kind of, oh, that's kind of nice, oh, yeah, maybe I should. You need to look after yourself to provide this kind of support to others. And the compassion piece, I've got a little mantra in my head when I'm talking to other people, and I really can't place where I got this from, but it's a little phrase that really helps me, which is everyone is always in the middle of something. And that reminds me that when I'm talking to somebody and they seem to be a bit distracted, or maybe they're not responding to me in the most kind of helpful, positive way, I just say everyone's in the middle of something. So I want to give them grace. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. And that includes us. We're always in the middle of something. So if you're taking one thing away from this, our conversation, well, maybe two things. One thing is, please make sure your needs are met before you go out and try and make sure other people's needs are met, because you need your tank to be not on empty. If you feel, hey, I'm running on empty all the time, please reach out to someone, take time for yourself. So that's one side of things. And the other is the idea that it's something we can all do right now. It's just that taking that positive intention when we're going to be listening to others, and recognizing that in the busy world we're living in right now, giving someone our full and undivided attention, even if it's for 3 minutes, is going to feel like a gift to that person.
Ah, that's beautiful and absolutely 100% true. Thank you, Christian, so much for being our guest on the Wellness Driven Life Show. We are so honored to have you here with us today to share your insights. And I want to make sure that everyone knows where to find you. So, for those of you viewing, we've had it displayed here on the screen throughout the show. And for those of you listening in, coachonamotorcycle.com. Easy peasy. And it's also in the description below. Again, Christian, it has been an very much a pleasurable experience with you here today. I was getting myself tongue twisted and tied. Well, this radical listening bit has been so fun, and something that obviously all of us can utilize and improve upon. Is there anything else you want to share with our audience today?
Just two very quick things, April. Thank you for having me on your show. One is to appreciate you and the wonderful way you hosted our conversation and the valuable work that you're doing. So thank you very much for that, April. The other is to our listeners, the fact that you're interested in this topic, the fact that you're listening to this, that's one of the things that gives me hope. And, in the seemingly uncertain, seemingly divided world that we're in, I just wanted to share with you that these are things that, we can take action already. We can reach out to people and we can start connecting with others. Thank you so much for listening, and thanks for having me on your show, April.
You're welcome. And thank you to our audience, because without you, the show wouldn't be possible. So goodbye for now, and we will see you next time.